So Healdsburg's median home price hit $1.2 million in October of 2025. So how do teachers, nurses, firefighters, and restaurant workers actually afford to live here? So today I'm breaking down the new housing developments that will change everything for people who work in this city. I've watched this challenge for a while, and what's coming in the next 2 years is quite remarkable. So let's start with the marketing reality. And that's what most people don't understand about Healdsburg. While other wealthy towns push workers to the margins, this city's been doing something different for decades. And Healdsburg's one of the most expensive places to live in the entire United States. I mean, when you're looking at median prices of $1.2 million and $656 a square foot, that's a serious buyer for most people. But what makes Healdsburg different is how it's kept this incredible community mix. On one of the best streets in the city, you'll see a $3 million home sitting right next to a multifamily unit. That's not an accident, it's sort of intentional. After years of working and living here, I can tell you it's this mix which gives Healdsburg its soul. You've got winemakers living alongside Silicon Valley millionaires, restaurant workers sharing neighborhoods with tech executives, and people who've lived here for generations from when it was a small farming town. You've got teachers, firefighters, nurses, and young families, all part of the same community fabric. That integration, that's what makes the town feel alive year-round instead of just being a tourist spot. And this model becomes even more critical when you see what's actually being built right now, which I'm going to break down in detail shortly. Now here's where it gets challenging. Keeping that fabric when home prices jump 23% in a single year, I mean, that's incredibly hard. The city has to balance growth with affordability, development with character, and market forces with community needs. And the city does a great job with this. This deliberate integration isn't just philosophy, it shapes every development decision the city makes. Which brings us to the challenge that's been building over the past few years. So quick note before we dive in deeper. If you're thinking about making Healdsburg work for your situation, whether that's navigating workforce housing options or understanding the broader marketplace, I help people every day figure out their path to living in wine country. And my contact information is in the description below, so feel free to reach out. Now let's get into the specific challenge that sparked all these new developments. And that's the worker housing challenge. 3 huge developments opened in Healdsburg recently. Luxury hotels, high-end residences, all with premium amenities. And they created a problem nobody wants to talk about. So let me tell you what's happened over the past few years, because I added some seriously high-end spots. The Montage Resort, Mill District, Hotel Appellation, which just opened in September of this year. And these are amazing properties bringing jobs and economic activity to town. But think about this for a second. Who works at these places? Housekeepers, front desk staff, restaurant servers, maintenance crews. Where do they live when the average rent in Healdsburg is far beyond what most hospitality and service workers can afford each month? So what happens? People commute. They drive 30, 40 or 50 minutes each way from other areas. I mean, that changes everything. When the people who make this town run can't afford to live here, you lose something really important. I mean, I'm saving the most interesting part for when we look at how these projects actually got funded, because the numbers are wild. But first, let me show you what's solving this. One of the biggest concerns lately has been making sure workers at these newest luxury spots, or anyone who works in the city, can actually afford to live in the city. The city saw this problem coming, and rather than just watching it get worse, they've actually done something about it. What's coming over the next 2 years is huge. I mean, this will make a massive difference to people who work here but can't afford the current prices. The city recognized something critical. You can't maintain community fabric without housing for the community. This isn't new for Healdsburg. It already has lots of units for the people who work here. Healdsburg's commitment to maintaining a balanced and inclusive housing mix is reflected in its 36 affordable housing locations, which together provide 878 deed-restricted units. That's a huge number for a town this size, and that represents about 16% of the city's total housing stock, a remarkable figure for a community of this size. With a vacancy rate of less than 1%, an average waiting list stretching nearly 2 years, demand remains high for those well-managed, high-quality homes. So let's talk about the new developments and what's actually being built. Over 140 new units are coming to Healdsburg in the next 2 years. Funded, approved, under construction. These units are like nothing like the projects of the past. They're thoughtfully designed, well built, and provides the kind of long-term stability that keeps Healdsburg community connected and whole. So let me break down exactly what's coming. There are several major housing projects either being built or about to start. And this isn't just talk, these are real developments with real timelines. So let's first talk about Dry Creek Commons at 155 Dry Creek. This is literally breaking ground as I record this video. It's a major step forward in creating more housing housing options for Healdsburg's workforce and local families. Developed by Burbank Housing, this thoughtfully designed community will bring a mix of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom rental apartments to residents who live and work here right in Healdsburg and Sonoma County. The project is aimed at supporting individuals and families earning between 30% and 60% of the area median income, which for a family of 4 means housing earnings up to around $90,000 per year. And then we've got the Randall at Mill District. So here's the first one that's already done and open. The Randall at 111 Sawmill Circle. This is the 41 unit community built by Even Housing. What makes this spot perfect is it's literally steps away from where the future smart train station will be. Once the Healdsburg extension finishes in the coming years, people will have direct train access to all over the region. The building's got a mix of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom and 3 bedroom apartments. I mean, from what I've seen, Eden Housing did a thoughtful job with what they included. Outdoor patios, barbecue areas, gardening spaces and community rooms. They're creating a place where people can actually build community, not just crash at night between the shifts. And you might be wondering how communities like this actually pencil out financially. That's where the Saggio Hills funding story gets really interesting. So let's talk about that. So Saggio Hills is a 118 unit community being built by Freebird Development and Jamboree Housing. It's located east of Healdsburg Avenue, sort of north of Parkland Farms. Phase 1 broke ground in June 2025. That's 48 apartments finishing in late 2027. But here's what makes this different from typical developments. First, the funding. This project got $21.1 million from California's Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program. That's serious money, showing serious commitment. But it's not just about housing. The project includes a 3,000 square foot community centre and trails that connect to the Healdsburg Open Space Preserve and Foss Creek Restoration Area. They're weaving this into the landscape and not just dropping buildings on empty land. Compared to the Randall's amenities, which we just covered, you're looking at completely different scale of community infrastructure. The green approach is seriously impressive too. Energy Star and Greenpoint rated gold, grey water reuse systems, tons of solar panels and EV charging stations. These aren't just nice extras, they cut costs for residents long term. And here's something most people miss. The city's using the funding to boost transportation too. New zero emission bus service, better sidewalks, new bus shelters along Healdsburg Avenue and more trail connections. This makes the housing actually work without everyone needing a car. And then phase 2 adds another 70 units. Plus get this, 10 duplexes available for purchase. That gives people a path to owning, not just living there forever. Comstock North Village Workforce Housing is the next project. The third piece, this sits on 32 acres at Healdsburg North End. And it's part of something much bigger, which I've covered in other videos. But here's another big piece. Comstock's building 53 units at 16977 Healdsburg Avenue as part of the bigger North Village project. This is on a 32-acre site on the north end of town. The whole thing includes Hotel Appalachian, which has already opened, a senior living community, Enzo, which I've covered in another video, shops and green space. But the housing part is specifically people who work in the city. The project is approved, it's funded and expected to be completed in 2026. So 3 major projects, 3 different approaches, same goal, and the impact goes beyond just adding units to the market. So why does this matter for families and workers? Well, after living in Healdsburg for a while now, I've watched what happens when communities lose their workers. Towns get less vibrant, restaurants struggle to find staff, schools have trouble getting teachers, fire departments recruit from further away. But here's what people often miss. When workers live in the community, they're part of it. They shop locally, their kids go to the local schools, they volunteer, they join groups and become real residents instead of people just passing through on the way to work. And what makes Healdsburg special isn't the luxury spots or the wine. It's that you can have people who work here and live here, all living on the same block, all part of the same community. These housing projects help more families afford to stay, and the fabric of the town just stays intact. I can tell you that integration is fragile. It takes real work to keep the fabric together. These housing projects do just that. Families prioritizing community connection over pure luxury find this model increasingly rare, but maintaining it requires careful navigation of market realities. So who can get access to all these new units? I mean, the city has been incredibly careful to make sure they go to the people they're intended for. Adopted in December 2019, Healdsburg's housing policy ensures that the city's deed-restricted affordable housing units primarily benefit those with deep local ties. The policy gives first priority to qualified applicants who actually live or work within Healdsburg city limits, followed by those who live in unincorporated areas of the 95448 zip code. And then the third tier extends eligibility to neighbouring communities, so communities such as Windsor, Geyserville and Cloverdale, while the fourth priority acknowledges those who once called Healdsburg's home, using school enrolment or prior utility accounts as proof of them previously living here. This approach helps preserve the local fabric of the city, giving residents and workers the chance to continue building their lives right here in Healdsburg, often where their families are. So let's talk about market balance. Most cities talk about housing solutions. Healdsburg actually built them, while at the same time working within free market constraints, not against them. Now I want to address something important. Healdsburg is doing this in a free market. The city isn't building the housing directly. They're partnering with developers. They're partnering using state funding, and they're using planning tools to encourage these types of projects. From experience, that balance is incredibly tricky. You need to keep property values up and encourage building, while also making sure the community stays accessible to workers. And the city does a great job of managing this. I think Healdsburg is doing it well. Mill District has got luxury canopy residences selling for $5 million plus right next to the Randall. Comstock North Village mixes workforce housing with the luxury Appalachian Hotel. Again, mixed income. That model works because it doesn't cluster just one type of housing. It keeps economic mixing at the neighbourhood level. And that reflects what makes Healdsburg special in the first place. Healdsburg proves you can grow without losing what matters. So what does this actually deliver over the next few years? Well, let's talk about what happens over the next few years. You're looking at over 140 new units coming between 2025 and 2027. And that's not enough to solve the whole housing problem, obviously, but it is a real step. Here's what I think happens. First, some pressure comes off the market. When you add 140 plus units, specifically for workers and moderate income families as rental units, it makes a huge impact. Second, businesses in Healdsburg get easier access to staff. When your workers can afford to live here near work, hiring and keeping people gets way better. That matters for everyone, and it will ultimately improve the overall experience. And then third, the community keeps its character. When teachers can afford to live where they teach, when firefighters live in the community they protect, when restaurant workers are neighbours instead of commuters, the town stays connected to itself. Understanding these timelines helps you plan whether you're looking now or waiting for specific projects. But let me pull this all together. So a nurse finishing her shift at the hospital, walking home instead of driving 45 minutes. I mean, that's not a dream. That's what's becoming real. And if you're thinking about working in Healdsburg, already do so, but you've been commuting because you thought living here was impossible, I mean, it's worth checking out these new spots. And if you're just interested in how wine country towns balance growth with accessibility, then Healdsburg is doing interesting work here. I mean, it's not perfect by a long stretch, and housing challenges are still big, but the commitment to keeping community fabric through smart development is genuine, as I hope you can see. These new housing projects are part of making sure families can stay, that workers at the new luxury spots can live where they work, and that Healdsburg keeps the special mix that's always made it unique. So these housing projects prove something critical. Maintaining community character requires intentional action, not just hoping the market figures itself out. So if you're ready to explore Healdsburg real estate, or want to understand how these workforce housing developments affect the broader community, then please do send me an email at david@BruingtonHargreaves.com, and I'll help you navigate the wine country options that would work for your situation. And if you want to know why short-term rentals are delivering $40,000 to $82,000 in annual revenue across top US markets now, check out the video I've linked here. If you've ever considered wine country investment properties, you'll want to see this analysis. So see you in the next video.